Hey y'all, welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you how I make about 30 days worth of breakfast to put in my freezer and my refrigerator so I don't have to worry about breakfast for the entire month. Also, these recipes come together in about 30 minutes or less, and they're super delicious and budget friendly. So let's get started. This first breakfast is going to be a twist on my really easy muffin recipe. First, I just start by preheating my oven to 400 degrees and lining a muffin tin with paper liners, or I grease them with butter. Then in a large mixing bowl, I'm going to mix together some flour, baking powder, salt, and sugar. I do like to sift some of the ingredients to make sure I don't get big chunks of baking powder because that is not pleasant. So after that's all mixed together, I'm going to get a separate bowl here and whisk together the eggs, milk, and vegetable oil. Now, you can substitute applesauce instead of the eggs or instead of the vegetable oil if you like. So that's definitely an option for a couple of easy substitutions if you don't have those things on hand or if you're allergic. Then I'm going to be adding my dry ingredients to the wet ingredients, and then I'll mix that well, but I don't want to overmix, so I'm just going to mix it until it's combined. And normally I add some fresh or frozen blueberries or any other berries, sometimes chocolate chips, but this time I have some leftover cranberry sauce from the holidays, and I wanted to make some cranberry muffins. I have maybe about a half a cup of cranberry sauce here. I did use some orange zest and orange juice in my cranberry sauce when I made it homemade, but if you didn't, you can definitely add some orange zest if you like, or a little splash of orange juice, whatever you want to make that a little bit more citrusy, and it really brightens up the muffins a lot. Now I'm just going to fold that in until it's combined, and then I'll carefully spoon the mixture into my muffin pan. You can fill it up almost all the way. I usually like to do 3/4. They're going to puff up a little bit in the oven, but not a ton, so you could fill them up all the way. I did have to use a couple of dishes on the side to make the rest of the muffins, but this makes somewhere between 12 and 15 muffins, and they only take about 20 to 25 minutes to cook, and just until a toothpick comes out clean. Then I'm just going to put them on a cooling rack for about 10 minutes, and then once they're cooled completely, I'm just going to put them in the freezer in an airtight container, and then I just like to pop them in the microwave from frozen for about 40 seconds to a minute, and then they'll be ready to eat. They are so delicious, super moist, just a perfect, easy freezer meal. Next, I'm going to show you a semi-homemade, super fun sort of breakfast. It's kind of a dessert, I guess you could say. I like to make these with my kids, though. They absolutely love it. I'm just going to get the can of refrigerated cinnamon rolls. You can definitely use homemade cinnamon roll dough for this if you like, but again, this is a semi-homemade thing, kind of a shortcut. Now, I'm going to be making several different kinds of shapes. I'm going to unroll the cinnamon roll dough here and just sort of zigzag it and squish it together, and then add sort of a stem on the bottom. These first shapes are going to be Christmas trees. So you could really do a ton of different shapes for the holidays, and I think it is so fun. But I'm going to do several Christmas trees because Christmas is coming up, but I also wanted to experiment with a few other shapes as well. But don't forget, with the Christmas trees, you want to make sure there's a stem. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of making one of those familiar emojis, although the kids might like that. It's kind of funny. And then I also did a heart by just unrolling half of the dough and then rolling it back together and pinching the bottom. And this last one, I'm just making bunny ears with half of the unrolled dough and then just squeezing that on top as well. So you can see I've got Christmas trees, hearts, and bunny shapes. You could even do shamrocks too if you like. I'm just going to bake that as directed on the can of cinnamon rolls here. And once they're cooked through, we're going to take them out, but we don't want to cool them just yet because we want to put the icing on while they're still warm here, so that way the icing can kind of drip and really get evenly distributed. I just kind of pour a little bit on top and then use a knife to make sure it's even. And before the icing dries, I want to get some sprinkles. Of course, this is all optional. I know it is a ton of sugar, but you can put some sprinkles on top just to make it a little extra fun. And you can really add any toppings that you want here, just leave it as is. And again, you can use homemade for all of this if you like, but it's just a really fun breakfast. You can freeze them afterwards and just heat them from frozen. I just think it's kind of a fun extra, DIY semi-homemade treat for the kids, and it's a great breakfast idea, kind of a nice surprise. So this morning I'm going to make some homemade granola to go on top of some fruit parfaits that I'm going to be making. So first I'm going to start with a 1/4 cup of neutral oil. I'm using avocado oil, but you can use any neutral oil, coconut oil, whatever you have on hand is fine. Then I'm going to be using a 1/4 cup of maple syrup as well. You can use honey instead, but this time I want to do maple syrup to have that nice maple flavor that I love to have in my breakfast a lot of times. but you can use any sweetener that you like for this too. There we go. Next, I'm gonna add just about 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon and a pinch of salt to bring out the sweetness, about the same amount, 1/4 teaspoon or so. Just gonna give that a good mix until it's all nice and combined. Next, I'm gonna get my old-fashioned oats. I'm gonna put 1½ cups of my old-fashioned oats into this container. 1/2 cup, 1 cup, and we're just gonna go ahead and pour all the rest. It's about 1½ cups. Now I'm just gonna stir until that's all combined. And you can add any nuts you want to this. I don't have any on hand right now. Normally I would wanna add some pecans, like chopped pecans, slivered almonds. You can add peanuts, pepitas, anything that you like at this point. Maybe some chia seeds or some milled flax. I'm just gonna do a really basic recipe this time. And then the next time I do this, I'm gonna add a lot of things. It smells really delicious and mapley. Oh my gosh, smells amazing. There we go, that's what that looks like. All nice and combined. Now I'm just gonna get a baking sheet. I've got my parchment for easy cleanup. I like this unbleached parchment better. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pour my granola onto the parchment here. Actually, it's just oats. It's not granola yet, I guess, until I bake it. Then it will be granola. All right. And I'm just gonna layer that, pat it down and spread it out so it's in kind of an even layer because I want it to get nice and toasty. And I have my oven set to 300 degrees. I'm just gonna bake it for about 20 minutes. And I may toss it or stir it midway, about 10 minutes or so. And you can feel free to double this batch and really make it your own, add anything that you want. But I'm just, again, making a small batch for myself and maybe the kids. I'm gonna see if they like it. So let's get baking. My granola is done. I'm just gonna pull this out. I stirred it halfway through. It's nice and toasty, golden brown. And right now it's gonna be very wet, but when I let it cool, it'll get nice and crispy. So we're just gonna let it cool for a bit. It's been about 10 minutes or so and my granola is pretty hard now. So now I can just start sort of snapping it with my fingers to break it up into however big I want it to be. So I can really crumble it and make it into small crumbles, or I can make these nice chunks here for snacking. Really, really delicious. I just end up putting all of my granola in a mason jar with a lid on top and just keeping it in my pantry until I'm ready to top my parfaits or my overnight oats or whatever it is I'm using it for. So today I'm going to show you how to make easy parfaits. It's ridiculously easy. You just get some frozen fruit, which is great because it's another way to have fruit on hand without worrying about it getting spoiled in the fridge before you can eat it. So just put one layer in an airtight container of your frozen fruit, whatever kind of fruit that you love. Then just put a layer of Greek yogurt. I like Greek yogurt, but you can use any yogurt really that you like. And if you want to add a little more sweetness, you can add a little bit of honey on top of your yogurt as well, but that's optional. Then just do another layer of the frozen fruit and another layer of the Greek yogurt. And again, you can see I'm putting a little bit of honey for sweetness here because that's how we like it, but you can do maple syrup if you like, or no sweetener, that's totally up to you. Now, I'm also going to be showing you how to make this fully grab and go with the granola. I'm just going to cut a couple pieces of parchment into squares, and I'm going to place that on top of the Greek yogurt and then pour the granola into that little parchment paper and then fold it up and put the lid on top. So this way, if you're in a hurry in the mornings, you can just grab it and then it'll be easy to pour the granola in on your way. So if you really have zero time in the morning, it's really great, but you can just pour the granola in. And this is a really great option for a high protein breakfast because the Greek yogurt has a ton of protein, granola has protein, some fruit has protein, and you can add some nuts for extra protein. So you can easily get 20 to 30 grams of protein in one of these little fruit and yogurt parfaits. It's incredible. Now the next morning, I'm just showing you how easy it is to put this together. You just take the parchment out, pour the granola in, and you're all set. And you can make 4 or 5 of these at a time and just leave them in the refrigerator, and they'll be great for those 4 or 5 days. So just a super easy grab and go breakfast. Today I'm going to be making some maple sausage pancake bites. I normally use just regular breakfast sausage, so you can use that. And I'm just using some pancake mix. Any pancake mix you have is fine. This is the one I have on hand, so this is what I'm going to be using. And you could do these as biscuits instead of pancakes too. You could use biscuit mix or make homemade biscuit mix, whatever you want to do. But today I'm going to be doing pancake bites. So let's get started. I'm just going to go and cook this really quick, and I'll be right back. So this time I've decided to take the sausage out of the casing. I just squeezed it out, and I'm just going to cook it this way. It's just going to be a little bit easier to break it all apart in small pieces. But you can definitely just bake the sausage in the casings or cook it in the casings and then just chop it finely afterwards. It's totally up to you, whatever you find is easiest for this. Now I'm just going to break it apart into smaller pieces and just make sure it's browned all the way through. And if there's any grease left over, I am just going to separate it so I don't get the grease all in my pancake bites. You can leave the grease in though if you like that. While the sausage finishes cooking up, I am just going to go ahead and start putting all of my muffin liners in here. You do not have to do it this way. This is just a little bit easier for me. So you can certainly use a casserole dish though if you want to just put the whole thing in one container, that's fine. It's just easier for me to freeze them in individual portions like this after I've cooked them. So I'm going to go ahead and just line those, and then I'll get a mixing bowl. There we go, mixing bowl. And I'm going to go ahead and measure out 2 cups of my pancake mix. And if you want to add more protein to these, you can use a high protein pancake mix or something like that. You can also add cheese into these. That turns out really good too. So whatever you like to do. I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. So 2 cups of pancake mix. And then I'm going to add 1.5 cups of water. And I'm just going to be adding half of my sausage directly to the mixture here. And then I'm just going to give that a mix until everything is nice and combined. We don't want to over mix, of course. All right, that's looking good. Now I'm just going to place this batter into my prepared muffin tin. It's easier for me to use a measuring cup. I'm just going to fill these about 3/4 full or so. They're going to puff up when they cook. And now let's just pop these in the oven at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll check to see if they're done. All right, let's see where we're at 20 minutes. I'm just going to poke one with a toothpick here and see if it comes out clean. This one looks pretty large. Okay, so it looks like they are done. Let's go ahead and pull these out and let them cool. Look at those beauties. Next, I'm going to show you one of my favorite breakfasts. This is overnight oats, and I do just eat my overnight oats straight from the refrigerator, but you can actually warm it up if you just cannot eat oats cold. And if you don't like oatmeal, try this instead, because I personally don't like hot oatmeal, but I love cold oatmeal and granola, overnight oats and things like that. So first I'm just going to put a little bit of frozen fruit on the bottom of some of my mason jars, followed by some oats, then some Greek yogurt. I'm adding a little bit of vanilla extract, but that's totally optional. That's up to you. I also like to add a little bit of honey or maple syrup for sweetness. Again, that's totally optional, and you can add any kind of sweetener that you like. I also like to add a tablespoon of chia seeds. You can add any kind of milled flax or any nuts or seeds that you want to add to this too. Then equal parts of whatever oats I did to liquid. So I'd add about 1/2 cup of milk in this case. You can use almond milk, coconut milk, really any kind of milk, or even just water if you'd like, and that would work perfectly fine. Then I'll just give that a mix, and you saw I added a little bit of honey as well for sweetness. And after it's all mixed together, I'm just going to put the lids on. I usually like to make only up to 4 of these at a time, so that way they don't get all soggy. So 4 is usually the perfect number. Just put it in the fridge, and then the next morning when you're ready to eat, you just open it up, give it a little mix, add any toppings like nuts or seeds, and that's it. Enjoy! Okay, I'm going to be making some pumpkin muffins using a pumpkin bread recipe that I adapted from All Recipes. So I just changed a few things based on what I like, but you can definitely use the recipe as is and just kind of go with, you know, what you want to do. But this is how I make it. I'm just going to add my dry ingredients. So that's 1.5 cups of flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, a little bit extra of the spices, and you can do whatever you like with the spices depending on how you like it. I like it a little bit spiced, you know, so a heaping teaspoon here of ground cloves. And if you don't like the spice, then do less, of course. I'm going to be doing some ground cinnamon as well, and everything's just like a teaspoon and a half, like a heaping teaspoon, you know, so I'm not really specific about it. Now we're using some nutmeg as well. Gotta have the nutmeg. And same thing with that, just a heaping teaspoon. baking powder, half of a teaspoon. We're gonna need half of a teaspoon of salt as well. It's the salt I have, so half a teaspoon of salt. I'm just gonna mix that together until it's combined. So that's all combined. Now we're going to be mixing the sugars and the eggs and the pumpkin and the oil and all of that. I'm doing 4 eggs. If you want to cut down on the eggs, you can add, more oil, or you can do applesauce instead of some of the eggs or instead of all of the eggs. It'll definitely make it a little bit of a different texture, but it's still a great substitute. So that's something you can do. 4 eggs. So now I'm going to add 1 cup of sugar. You can certainly add less sugar if you like, but this is kind of like a guilty pleasure kind of, bread for us around the holidays, and it keeps us from going to our local coffee shop, so I'm okay with it. And I do need 1/4 cup here of light brown sugar. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I've got my homemade vanilla extract here, and I've had this for months and months and months. I'm going to be adding half a teaspoon. Blend all of these ingredients. So now I'm adding a can of pumpkin. I took out a tablespoon or so because I want to make some pumpkin spice syrup with just that. And so this is kind of what I do. If I feel like I'm in a pumpkin mood, I'll make all of the pumpkin things, pumpkin syrup for lattes, pumpkin bread, pumpkin muffins. So I try not to let any of this pumpkin go to waste. And that's why I've modified this recipe, because the recipe only calls for about 1/2 can of pumpkin or something like that. And I wanted to make sure I used the pumpkin. Plus, I love the pumpkin flavor. So you can definitely make 2 loaves of bread though, if you want to do that and use less pumpkin per recipe. And now I'm only adding 1/4 cup of oil. So that's 4 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And of course you can use applesauce too instead of oil. Now I'm just going to mix this up. Now I'm just going to add the dry ingredients to this, and we'll get that all mixed together until it's nice and combined. All right, everything is combined. So I'm going to get my little muffin tin. I only have 1. You can use whatever scooper you want, but I am just going to be using a spoon. Okay, so let's see how this goes. I do not know how long I'm going to need to cook these for, but we're going to see together. The loaf normally takes 70 minutes, but it's been about 25 minutes. I'm going to check to see where we're at with the muffins, just because it is much more shallow, and the toothpick should come out clean. So it does appear to be clean, and the tops are brown. Looks like there's a little bit of moisture left on here. I think I'm just going to leave it for about 2 or 3 more minutes, and then that'll be good. Okay, these have got to be done by now. It has been about 28 minutes, and they look nice and brown and beautiful, and the toothpick is clean coming out. So let's go ahead and pull them out, let them cool, and put the next batch in. Nothing better than some home-cooked pumpkin bread or pumpkin muffins. All of the muffins are done, so now I can go ahead and freeze these in a bag for later. When I'm ready, I just take them out of the bag from the freezer, put them in the microwave for about a minute or so, and they come out beautifully every time. So this is a great breakfast option. I also made some with these other liners that I found just to see how these work, and these are very fancy, so I like that. I'm just not sure how well they're going to freeze. I'll probably have to fold them, but they are very cute. This next breakfast idea has become one of mine and my kids' absolute favorites, and it starts with a can of chickpeas in a blender. I sometimes use almond milk, but this time I'm using regular milk, some maple syrup, a little bit of vanilla extract, and some homemade peanut butter. You can just use store-bought peanut butter, or actually any nut butter that you'd like, or even seed butter, whatever you want to use. And then some cocoa powder. The cocoa powder is a must. That's what masks the bean flavor. So if you don't want to taste beans, you got to use your cocoa powder. Then a little bit of baking soda and a couple eggs. And I'm just going to give that a blend until everything is nice and smooth. I do like to scrape down the sides just to make sure I can get everything incorporated. And once it's nice and blended, I like to mix in some chocolate chips. I like the mini chocolate chips for this. You can use any chocolate chips you like though. You can use a dairy-free option, or you can just chop up some chocolate you have on hand. You don't need to do the chocolate chips, but I find that it makes these even tastier. I'm turning these into pancakes, so I'm just going to cook them just like regular pancakes. They take just a little bit longer to cook though, so just keep an eye. And I actually like them without butter. So you can use oil or just a nonstick pan if you like until they're nice and cooked through. And then I like to make sure that I freeze these in bags along with my other freezer meals too, just some sort of like airtight container. And they usually last about 6 months in the freezer. I hope you enjoyed those recipes and at least got a little inspiration for things to make in your home. If you have any breakfasts that you make in your home to put in the freezer or the fridge, please put those down in the comments so we can all get more ideas too. And YouTube thinks you'd like to watch another video, so click on that, enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.